Red bell.
Members, we'll go ahead and start the meeting. Our first item is our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Vice Chair, could you please read our mission statement?
Mission of the Marshall Public School District is to educate, support, and prepare all learners for success.
Thank you. Need approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Any additions? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. It is approved. Moving on to our presentation, Career and Technical Education Center update. Welcome. The floor is yours.
All right. I see everybody on the call that's going to help me present today, which is good. Yeah, you can go ahead and put the presentation up. So thank you for allowing us to share some information with us and the progress that we've made with the expansion of our career and technical education or programming. And just to give you a little background before I turn it over to Brad, how this all came about, I should say, is when Jeremy and I were reviewing the strategic plan at the beginning of the school year. It's focused around, we have two goals this year focused around developing the 21st century skills that students need. And one of them is specifically around the possible expansion of our CTE programming and ensuring that we're meeting the needs of our community and our surrounding area. So from there, we held a meeting with many different community members, business owners. We had different industries available. We had lots of different people and entities at the meeting and had lots of great ideas. We had some roundtable discussions, great ideas were generated and brought forth. From there, then we put together kind of our core group that we've met a lot of times this school year, but it's been really great work. And the core group consists of Jeremy and myself, as well as Brian Jones from the high school, Brad Gruhat from the chamber, and then Ariane Ferris from the Private Industry Council. So we've met several times and had many discussions. What is our vision? Where do we want this to go from here? So what we're going to do is Brad's going to give you some background information on what the needs are in our community and in our surrounding areas. And then Ariane will talk about a work-learn coordinator. What we kept coming back to in our conversations is we need a work-learn coordinator, someone that can coordinate the programming for us. And then Brian will kind of tie it together with what are our next steps at the high school level. So with that being said, Brad, you can go ahead and take it over. So Brad from the chamber.
Great. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing us to talk about the important topic that we're talking about today. And a lot of the information that I am going to kind of touch on is coming from the real-time talent website, which is one of the workforce component of the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce website in relation to Southwest Minnesota. And although the first slide here isn't anything that's foreign to you all, basically what's going on is that we have our baby boomers are retiring. We have a lot of other kids that are trying to replace these jobs, and we're having a hard time. And we knew this gap was happening. This has been something that we've been working on now for 10 years. So it's we have an aging workforce, and we're looking to backfill that workforce with all sorts with the incoming or the high schoolers that are out there right now, and people that are looking for work. Next slide here is the population compared to the labor force. As you can kind of see it, the population it keeps going down. The labor workforce is going down with that. However, so there just needs to be how can we close that gap moving forward. So yeah, this is come 2030, you can kind of see where that kind of keeps declining. And so an initiative like this is, certainly needed. Population by cohort here. The population is by 2025, you can see that age keeps going up. For the and then the population for age 55, it kind of goes down. Yeah, aging is certainly contributing to Minnesota's slowing labor workforce issues. And we're not seeing a lot of the kids that are coming out of high school that are willing to kind of get into this work, and that's where again why we're working on this. Unemployment in Lyon County is actually pretty close to where we are pre-COVID. So there isn't a lot of talent to recruit from when it comes to career and technical education type of jobs like electricians and plumbing and blue collar type of work. Agriculture is another one. So and then the individuals that are in that small percentage aren't necessarily looking for work. So even though they should be. So unemployment rate is back down. You can see it spiked when COVID hit last spring, March, April timeframe. It has declined, and Lyon County is very low, 2.9% or 2.8% as of 2.9 in Lyon County, 2.8% as of November last fall. Business Education Network is a group of chambers statewide that are working with the business community and the educators in their community. This is something that was presented at our board a couple of years ago, so I was thrilled when Beth and Jeremy reached out last fall to be part of these discussions moving forward. And there's different. You can see there's chambers in the Twin Cities and Greater Minnesota, and each one of them kind of Winona was actually the ringleader, and then it kind of spread from there. There was certainly manufacturing is a huge component in Winona, and they're looking for a lot of workers there. They have a great relationship with the public schools and the business community to make that connection. Now, each business education network, I would say, looks completely different in each community. In the next slide, it kind of talks about what some of those the highlights of each of their business education network. So I mean, it's anything from a teacher externship, career pathways, and so on. So there's a lot of different chambers, a lot of different highlights from each chamber with their we call it short for, it's BEN. BEN is short for Business Education Network. Each one of them has a different highlight, and here, and this is here's a couple of examples right here. So we want to retain our own. Obviously, we want to keep the kids that aren't interested in going to school, or perhaps they want to go to a 2-year education at one of the technical colleges, and we want to bring them back. We're up against South Dakota. They have a very aggressive program over there where they pay for some of their education as long as the kids stay there. So we have some work to do, and that kind of addresses that bottom bullet point, addressing the barriers. And so yeah, it's our feeling that with a career learn what is it called? Work and learn coordinator, that we can do that and hit some of these bullet points.
All right, thank you, Brad. So up next is Ariane Ferris. She's with the Private Industry Council. And like Brad just mentioned, with the Work Learn Coordinator, she's been instrumental in getting this person set up. So she's going to give you a little information on what a Work Learn Coordinator, what that person does, and how it'll look for us here in Marshall Public Schools. So Ariane, you're up.
Great, thanks. It's nice to be here this afternoon. As Beth mentioned, my name is Ariane Ferris, and I'm the Youth Program Manager with the Southwest Minnesota Private Industry Council. And we are a nonprofit partner of the Career Force, which was formerly known as the Workforce Centers. We have 3 Career Force locations in Southwest Minnesota, and those are in Marshall, Worthington, and Montevideo. But what I'm here to talk today about, or this afternoon, is about work-based learning. And what I just like to kind of find ironic is that work-based learning solves a problem faced by many young people, and that is that it's hard to get a job without work experience, and it's hard to get work experience without a job. And work-based learning really includes those activities and experiences that develop skills and knowledge and also readiness for work. But also, in addition to that, it supports entry into a particular career pathway. And we also find in kind of our more rural communities, also builds some significant social capital for our young people, which also creates some investment for them to want to come back home because it just expands their roots that much more in their rural community. So moving on to the next slide, this here just kind of talks about what the core purposes of work-based learning are. And those are really exposure to work and careers, apply what is being learned in the classroom to real world situations and scenarios, develop professional skills, and then ultimately gain temporary and permanent engagement with local businesses through internships, career mentoring, job shadows. And you can see there's kind of a continuum here of ways in which they can do that. So going on then to the next slide, this here is kind of the work-based learning framework that the Private Industry Council has adopted since 2019. But what it's really helped us to build our capacity across the region to be able to support our local school districts and employers, to be able to deal with the labor force shortage that we're experiencing in Southwest Minnesota, as Brad mentioned. And what has been really working well for us and to be able to support this is that intentionality and focus on our future workforce, those that we are already working tirelessly to educate and train for their futures. And likely the majority will, likely they'll all work at some point in their lives after high school. Sorry. The UPS guy is here. My dog wants to make sure that everybody knows that the UPS guy is here.
Oh, yeah, so I figured.
Ariane, I think you muted yourself.
I did, yes.
There we go.
Yes. But anyways, going back to the framework just real quick, I was sharing there with you that we really enjoy this framework because the three characteristics that are really advantageous in this framework are that there's that foundation below there, that career exploration. And so there's really that opportunity to prepare the students for the work-based learning and not just throwing them out to the employers saying, you know, go connect with an employer, talk to an employer. That sounds pretty simple, but there's a lot more to it than just having a conversation. And then also the opportunity for that reiteration. So being able to kind of cycle back with no dead ends. And then really being able to kind of make those, having that opportunity reflect and really make those kind of meaning-making opportunities kind of integrated throughout these opportunities. So not just one and done. So moving then on to the next slide, really just kind of goes through each specific area of that framework. So as a school to work intermediary across the region of Southwest Minnesota, we really want to provide a continuum of career services. And so Jobs for the Future is a national organization that we do a lot of research with and work alongside of. They have some very excellent resources as far as realistic ways of engaging with employers and schools and students and kind of making all this stuff work here. But the first piece of this continuum, as I mentioned, is really that career exploration. And so we want to make sure that we're building awareness of careers, awareness of self too. So they maybe understand what careers are, but what about them? What are their strengths? How does that apply to an industry or a career? and then really begin to kind of instill the professional skills needed to engage with employers. And a lot of times we find that in order to have the confidence to do that, they need to be able to know kind of who they are and what their strengths are, so that they can communicate that. Moving on to the next slide, then there we talk about career exposure, and this is really bringing the students to the workplace. The goal is to really help the students gain that introductory information about an occupation or an industry. And so some examples here just might be job shadows. Maybe we have an employer come in, do hands-on demonstrations or simulations in the classroom or virtually, or maybe the students go out on site and see a demonstration. But oftentimes what we've seen here too is this has really allowed for the teachers to be able to really gain that understanding of what those skills are that industry is looking for. Moving along then, onto the next slide there, we talk a little bit more about just career engagement and what that looks like. But this really provides the basic technical and employability skills to students. So career and technical and career pathway courses are great examples of this component. Really beginning to connect and create the relevance for students in kind of the curriculum or their academia. So as well as working and engaging in work-based learning activities that are more specific to an occupation. So again, just really seeing that relevance of what they're learning in the classroom. And this is really the point too where we begin to hold students' professional expectations really throughout the entire framework we want to. But at this point, this is really where it becomes important, and things like accountability, being able to balance schoolwork and after-school classes, extracurricular activities, meetings, things like that. Being able to communicate and problem solve are also skills that we want to make sure that students are being expected to demonstrate. So then moving along, we have the career experience. And so that's really our high level work-based learning activities, kind of including things like on-the-job trainings, or maybe a more comprehensive kind of internship, or maybe a form of an apprenticeship. So then moving on to the next slide, that's all really a lot of work to be able to do for a school or just an employer alone. And so since 2018, the Private Industry Council, we've had a work and learn coordinator really act as the boots on the ground in which to increase the capacity of kind of our intermediary services so that we can support schools, students, and employers to be able to connect with one another. So kind of providing these intermediary services has been a primary goal of the Southwest Minnesota Workforce Development Board. The goal is to provide intermediary services to education and industry, and what that really is intermediary-wise is just building that bridge. But through the feedback from our board, which is comprised of more than 24 public and private sector businesses, workforce development forums held since 2016. Our most recent one was just in February of 2020, just right before the pandemic. But just recently too, knowing that some of the input we would have received prior to the pandemic has probably or likely significantly changed since then. So we just went out over the last few months and did one-on-one surveys with employers across the region. And the goal has really rose to the top, this one here specifically, of being kind of intentional of connecting education and industry. They see it as kind of the top one, and probably the most relevant and important to our employers' needs as far as the skilled workers. And for students, we survey students all the time too, and based on student interest surveys that we do in partnership with the Southwest West Central Service Co-op, career exploration and planning, independent living skills, and internship courses are typically the top 5 on the students' interest list. So they're just as interested as the employers are interested in having them. It has and kind of continues, it continues to be our goal to build this intermediary capacity with that work and learn coordinator. And we've been really successful in our efforts of doing this work since 2018. And I feel confident saying that because we've been able to grow the number of stakeholders and partners to invest in this role across the region. And these partners include the Southwest Initiative Foundation, Greater Twin Cities United Way, Otto Bremer Foundation, U.S. Bank Foundation, Department of Labor and Industry, Department of Employment and Economic Development, the Southwest West Central Service Co-op and the Launch Your Future Today, along with the Marshall Chamber of Commerce, who have helped to invest in this role in some way and somehow. And so looking into the future of sustaining it, we've had several EDAs and other chambers across the region also interested in investing and to contribute. So today we've secured funding for over 16 months to host a work and learn coordinator that will be focused on the Marshall, Tracy, and Minneota school districts. Much of our funding, including LIFT, which are some legislative CTE dollars that our region received back in 2019, I believe. And so what those funds do, and we've also found it very advantageous for the employers and for the schools, is that we were required to share these services among schools. So a majority of our money requires that we have schools working together and employers working alongside of each other. So this model works really well for us and our partners to continue to invest. But we're confident that through these continued conversations and the role that this work is going to do, that we'll be able to continue to sustain the position or the work. And the Workforce Development Board is also dedicated to continuing to raise funds for the work as part of its primary and so far very successful goal for our region's employers and schools. So just a little more information then about the work that the Work and Learn Coordinator does, going on to the next slide. The Work and Learn Coordinator really supports students by ensuring that the work-based learning experiences are being developed, aligned, and are sequenced with academic and the technical coursework and career-focused programs of study. Also to promote equity and access for all students to have the ability to engage in work-based learning. And also support schools, students, and teachers kind of through that continuum of career services. The Work and Learn Coordinator will support teachers through the coordination of the work-based learning opportunities, connecting them to industry to better understand how to teach employer standards, encourage and connect cross-training for teachers learning from employers, better aligning lessons to the industry and occupations in demand. And then this also provides awareness to those in front of our students daily about the world of work, and also beginning to instill, kind of understanding and beginning to instill and hold students to those professional expectations. Moving right along then, last but not least, the Work and Learn Coordinator supports not just the students and the teachers, but most importantly, our employers. So employers are supported through the management of the logistics regarding work-based learning. We realize that they didn't go into business to mentor students and to create job shadows and on-the-job training. So we really want this individual to be there as a support and to assist employers, ensuring all forms of liability and work agreements are in place, finding solutions to any legal or liability concerns, just making sure that they're able to match students to available opportunities, and really begin to kind of create a pipeline of students that can be prepared to enter the workplace. And lastly, continue to develop and strengthen the practices that best support kind of this bridge, keep those supports in place for our bridge between education and industry. And so just to wrap up my piece here, really what I'm just trying to get at, I think more than anything is, I think many of us are guilty of going to like a high school graduation and asking the graduate, you know, what college are you going to attend? And this has typically been the way we think about our kind of decision-making process. Usually it's college, major, and then a career pathway. And in talking with local employers who provide high demand and high pay career opportunities right here in Marshall, Southwest Minnesota, this typical pathway won't work. I'm going to put a link in the chat. It's a little longer than I have here tonight, but it really explains a lot more and describes that we're looking to do kind of the same thing in the local area, but really changing up the way our students and parents, community members are making that college decision-making process of more career pathway major. And then what does that future training. Is it 4-year? Is it 2-year? Or can you go right into the field and start working? So that's what I have for all of you this afternoon, and I really do appreciate you letting me be here today.
Super, thank you, Ariane. All right, Brian is going to finish up our presentation with now, how does this look at the high school, at Marshall Public Schools? So Brian, it is your turn.
Thank you, Beth. So at Marshall High School specifically, but Marshall Public Schools overall, because we have worked at Maytech over the past few years to bring in some of the aspects that both Brad and Ariane have talked about. So the question becomes, how do we capitalize and improve and expand on these opportunities for our students moving forward in the future? So we just can't stay put, so to speak, and continue to do what we've always done. We know the demands are continuing to increase, and so we need to be prepared to work with our business partners out in the community to do that. Ariane certainly has talked about the work and learn coordinator, and I would say thank you for the work that she's done and Brad has done around that, knowing that we, as it stands currently, don't have the time to make those type of connections and relationships on a large scale. We have done that on a small scale, and I'll talk about that here in just a moment. At Marshall High School, Marshall Public Schools, we have career and tech ed opportunities typically are found within 3 departments, agriculture, business, and industrial technology. And with business probably serving the largest percentage of our students in that capacity. And I'll just remind everyone that we do have a local graduation requirement of a career exploration class for students currently in grade 11 that all students have to take in order to start that process of exploring careers. And that, to Ariane's point, that's not a choosing a college class, but that is a career exploration class where we want students to continue with that process. Students in grade 10 do some career exploration through our participation with the Southwest West Central Service Co-op in the career day, which will be coming up. Normally it's in the fall, but it'll be coming up soon for our 10th grade students this spring. We also have additional programs which kind of help take our students who are interested from that career exploration up to that career internship, a little bit more of a exposure into specific careers. Our career internship program, where we partner with Minnesota West and students, Mrs. Kellen has ran that, Brenda Kellen has ran that program for a number of years, where we put students out into those careers to help let them further explore if that is something that they have interest in. We also, just to remind folks, we work in partnership with the Lakeview School District with Project Lead the Way. That's an engineering program, a sequence of courses where students who have interest in possibly becoming an engineer can start that process and learn more about what's entailed there in depth. And also new this year, we have a partnership with Minnesota River Valley Educational District. This is a consortium of probably 6 to 7 schools located more to the north of Marshall. And we have some students who are pursuing a course in aviation careers. And that's a new endeavor that we've started just this year and has begun in semester 2. So we understand that we need to continue to look for opportunities for all students, particularly around some of those traditional blue collar types of fields. And so we think this learn and work coordinator can help align the needs of our community, the needs of our staff, and the needs of our students to allow more students the opportunity to experience some of these opportunities while in high school. The next thing I'll show, and I'm guessing it looks pretty small for me. I'm guessing it looks the same for everyone sitting at the board meeting. But that's the career wheel. And we are in the process right now of our students are registering for their classes for next year. And this is a part of our registration book. We've had it for a number of years. We continue to refine it and encourage our students to utilize this. But if you go to the center of the career wheel, you'll see the 6 clusters, career clusters that exist. And then as you break out and remain in that color, you'll see some of the industries that are in the square boxes, followed by some of the job opportunities that exist. And then you'll see in very small print, some bulleted lists. And the bulleted lists are the classes that we offer at Marshall High School that we believe would align well to and prepare those students for a career in that particular field. And so whether that be someone who wants to go into education, a social worker, a police officer, they would go to the blue section, the human services. If they're interested in engineering, manufacturing, technology, the brown area in the lower right-hand corner. And so we really encourage our students to think about this and spend some time on this document in the registration, part of the registration process as they're selecting possible courses of interest for the next year. And hopefully starting even in grade 9 to help students think about if they have a potential interest or something that they really like, maybe classes like this could lead to some possible opportunities in that career in the future. So we're excited about this opportunity. Those the last 2 slides are just 2 ways which we're trying to help align our students to careers, along with, we have our Ramp Up to Readiness, which is a career and college readiness program that students utilize every Wednesday throughout their high school career here at MHS.
Kind of small as well. Red, do you want to just sum it up in a couple sentences, the conclusion?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and it's basically just exactly what we've been talking about. The need is there. The need for a position like this to connect with those businesses and the schools is at an all-time high. It's exciting to see where this position can land and go from here. This is, I think that we're just kind of scratching the surface with where we're at right now with this position coming in here soon.
Thank you, Ariane, Brad, and Brian for joining us virtually and presenting your piece of it. Like I said, we've all worked together, and like that last slide said, you can go, and I don't remember off the top of my head, faster alone, but further together. And I really feel that's what we've done this year is it's taken us some time, but we're really getting places, and I'm excited to see as we continue to work together, how far we'll be able to take this and the opportunities for our students and our staff members as well. Some exciting things that are in the works.
I want to reiterate that too and thank Brad and Ariane for all your support and partnership this year, because I think that collaboration is going to be huge with this project. Not just, we don't want to look at just let's add another class, even though that's part of the discussion too. One of the things we're looking at is possibly expanding in automotive courses, and we've had other conversations with local businesses and what are some other needs in the community and how can we expand. And we don't want to take on too much at one time, but really this work-learn coordinator, the idea is let's take some of the things we have to and help expand some opportunities for kids within that, as we're looking at what other needs might there be in these areas. And we're finding a lot of, like they mentioned, a lot of things that are pretty exciting that we can add and we can help introduce kids to. Sometimes it's even just looking at what exists in the community, not even just necessarily just the training part, but even what's here. Because I think sometimes we've talked a lot about, we're going to use the school district. We know that there's teachers in the school district, but do people also know some of those other positions that exist within the walls of the school district, about the places everyone else works? It's the same thing in the business. There's so many other things that exist, and helping make more of those connections for people.
I have a question of you, Brian. As a freshman comes in, do we assess kind of their interest areas in terms of careers? And if so, how do we counsel them into taking courses that would connect with that?
Good question. So as an 8th grader, students have exposure to a program called Minnesota Career Information Systems. And they have at the 8th grade level for probably the last 4 or 5 years, and Mary Kay or one of the maybe one of the counselors at the middle school could probably provide some additional information, but they start that process in 8th grade, starting to look at and consider some career exploration and just generating some awareness about that. Then when we go and meet with the students for the registration meetings and we have the parent registration meeting, we also spend some time, and normally that session where Mrs. Greenfield and I come over and talk about registration is paired with the session during parent-teacher conferences where the students, the 8th grade advisors, and the parents sit down and review those the MN Career Information Systems results for that student. And we try to use that to help them in selecting those classes as a 9th grader. Now, admittedly, as a 9th grader, students don't have a large amount of space in their schedule for career exploration, but they do have some, so they're able to start small. And then with each passing year, they have more, I'll call it real estate in their schedule to pursue those elective opportunities of study.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, board? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to our consent agenda, motion to approve it. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. It's approved. Board forum, any updates, board members?
The filed here task force minutes before this meeting. So it's a group of about 12 thus far, and some really great ideas and different topics of things that are going to be explored on a pretty fast track with the plan to probably try to meet with the big group in another week again, but some small groups working on some different ideas and opportunities and see what can come of it. So really productive, I thought. Jeremy also attended. So
Good discussion today.
Anybody else? Discussion items, moving on to second review of policies 524 through 529. Any comments?
Very little change with any of these policies.
Okay, move on to our action items, approval of the 2021-22 Southwest West Central Membership Agreement. Motion to approve it. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Open for discussion.
A couple changes in there you'll see this year, just with the sped director, we hired Jackie Budden internally, so that's made a big change on that, but on the contract budget, then that moved internally. A couple other things like that DHH, we're moving internally this year. We were able to find a candidate for that position, so it's a shift and a savings overall in the cost for that. Other things, just some minor changes of services we're purchasing for next year.
Very good. Any comments? Please vote. It is approved. We're going to move to a closed session. Motion to close the meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. The meeting is now considered closed. Oh, we got to vote. I'm sorry. Here we go. Now the meeting is closed. Thank you.